I can only do videos, so if this goes wrong, I'll blame somebody else, okay? All right. So, let's be honest here. In this male-dominated industry, mostly by older men, some of you might be sitting there and thinking, what in the world is this girl, this young girl, doing up on stage, right? I mean, if I were you, I'd be thinking that, as a woman, right? And first of all, if you thought of me as young, thank you very much. That's very flattering. I really appreciate that. Every year I appreciate that more and more. The second thing is that, yes, I would like to confirm your suspicions that I am really not an expert. And by that, what I mean is that I'm short too. That doesn't help.
For the best editorial on junior mining, visit cambridgehouse.com/mining. Click the link in the description below to learn more.
So I am not a geologist whatsoever. Just the sound of words like metamorphic put me right to sleep. I am not an engineer, so no stoping strategies with me. I don't get it. I don't have an edge when things get too technical. The other thing is that I actually lose a lot of money quite often. On my YouTube channel, I speak openly about losses of 50%, 60%, sometimes 75%. And some of the people in this room are like, yeah, I know, I've been there. I've done that, right? The other thing is that I also have terrible timing. If you guys have seen my Bitcoin video, you know exactly what I am talking about. So I bought Bitcoin when most of you did not even know how to spell Bitcoin because it was back in 2011. So this is very, very early days. Except I made zero money on Bitcoin, even though I bought it at only $4. That is impressively bad timing for selling, but very good timing for buying, as we could all agree. So, despite all of this, I was still able to do something really strange, which was last year, 2018, was probably a very bad year for most people in this room if you're invested in the resource stocks. A lot of people lost a lot of money, but I was able to point my subscribers for $0 because I don't charge for my services. I just put out what I'm thinking on my YouTube channel called The Next Big Rush about this little-known uranium company in the USA that was raising at 68 cents with a half warrant, if I'm not mistaken.
For the best editorial on junior mining, visit cambridgehouse.com/mining. Click the link in the description below to learn more.
And that became a 5-bagger within, 4 to 6 months. And that was the non-expert talking. And this is something that I believe a lot of people can actually do. And the reason why we don't do it is because we're caught up in the technicals. We all want to find the next discovery because that's going to be the next 10-bagger. And that's not always the best way if you're not technically inclined. Just understanding your strengths and understanding your weaknesses might actually play very well in the long term. So I have this funny little title here, How to Profit from Political Idiocy. Now, obviously, as a libertarian, to me, anything that politicians decide is idiocy. It's just people trying to move money from one place to the next. So it doesn't really matter whether you like the political moves or if you dislike them, as long as there's somebody in power with a pen, they will make decisions that will actually move the money here or there, and you can make or lose money according to their decisions and what they sign into law. Now, this company that I mentioned, it's following a theme. The theme is actually very simple, and if you've been in any of these rooms for any amount of time, you've probably heard of the uranium story. American-sourced uranium is a political theme. It's not really fundamental. I mean, there is a fundamental uranium story, but the political side of it is that Petition 232 is very hot. Anybody heard of Petition 232 in this room? Yep. Okay, so for those of you who don't yet know exactly what's going on, it is not a tariff, right? basically the uranium producers in the US are asking for a quota. So they want the government to go and tell the utilities, hey, you need to buy uranium from US producer at a minimum of 25% of everything you buy. Now, the thing with Petition 232 is that it has not played out yet. This has not been signed into law as of yet. And we don't really know whether it will pass. I have a strong feeling that it might pass for a few different reasons, which I might mention today. But the interesting thing is that just the possibility of this passing was enough for that stock to become a five-bagger in a very short period of time. So you don't always need something to pan out in order for you to look at something and think, there's this little known company here that nobody's talking about. They're in the US. They're going to get a lot of free marketing from this. And one thing that has been mentioned but not really explained well is that not just Petition 232, which shall be decided in April, is happening, but also Trump just signed a bipartisan law saying that they're going to do as much as possible in order to speed up the process of new nuclear reactors in the US. Now, I don't know if you've been following the story of uranium, but nobody is trying to do the math for what if the US market comes back and builds new reactors. Everybody's just planning on, okay, the US is just going to phase out the old reactors. That's it. Nobody is doing the math of what if they switch it on and just build out more and more. So that's really interesting as well. Something else is that if you follow uranium very closely, then you might have seen a video of a CEO that shall remain unnamed for now, of a company that is actually here today. And they actually said in this video about 2-3 months ago that the Secretary of Energy in the US came to them, to the uranium companies in the US, and asked them to put the petition through. I'm going to say that again because I think most people didn't quite get that. So the Energy Secretary of the US came to these companies and said, we are very pro-nuclear. We want you guys to ask us officially to basically grow your company possibly overnight by a factor of 4 or 5 and up. So that is a huge opportunity. But there were a lot of other companies that nobody talks about that actually did the same thing during the same period of time. And the petition has not been signed into law yet whatsoever. But a lot of people caught on really early, and they noticed where the trend was going. And just because of the rumor of this possibility, they were able to actually have a very good 2018. So that's lesson number 1. The possibility of a decision may be enough for you to profit. Some people have already bet on those stocks, and they're already out. They're on to the next thing, and that was enough for them, just the rumor of it. That's fine. I mean, we're all here to also make a profit, not to just look smart, so I always respect that. Now, this is something that I want to touch upon, and you can ask me more about this outside, or you can write to me later on, but one thing is that, okay, you may not like or know very much about uranium, but there's something that I really understand because that's all I do, that's all I read about on a daily basis, and that's Brazilian politics. Now, I have a strange accent. You can't really tell where I'm from, but I'm from Brazil, and I read the news of what's going on there every single day, maybe 3 times a day or more. I have businesses there, I have connections, and so that's what I probably know best. So no geology, no engineering, but when it comes to Brazilian politics, I can probably take some people on quite easily. And this is a strange chart because look at it. So the Brazilian president that has been sworn in on the 1st of April is, as some of you know, Bolsonaro. Now, Bolsonaro has been touted as the new Trump, or whatever that means, He is very pro-guns, pro-military, pro-anything that catches the headlines. And so this funny thing happened when he actually came into power, January 1st, right one day after that, the markets opened in Brazil, and the Brazilian gun maker, Taurus, doubled in 2 days. Now think about that for a second, because you see two spikes, and I'm pointing to the second spike over there. The first spike happened when he was actually elected, and then it crashed because people in Brazil that were making this bet know that Taurus is, for lack of a better word, a crappy gun maker. You know, you have cases of guns jamming. They pretty much have a monopoly with the cop force, and their guns are causing people to lose their limbs. So it crashes. But then it came back up. Why in the world would people all of a sudden realize, yeah, we've known that Bolsonaro has taken power for 2-3 months, but now let's just, buy this stock out of nowhere? Well, I have a hunch, and I'm not completely sure of this, but this is a possibility. It might be that Brazilian investors came in when Bolsonaro was voted in. They knew it wasn't a good company to begin with. They got out. And then the foreign investors heard about this crazy politician who's pro-guns, pro-military, took power, and then they bought on the second spike. So lesson number 2 is political trends may play out in cycles. And what I mean by that is that most of us have heard about the cannabis stock boom and bust that happened last year. That was actually the second boom and bust that happened in the cannabis space. So most of us don't know that the same thing happened in about 2014. We've had that happen before with the people who were the closest to the industry. And then everybody else heard about it, and then they rode the second wave. So pay attention to that, because maybe you're in the first wave, maybe you're in the second wave. Usually the second wave is much bigger than the first, but you have to watch out with your timing. The other thing I wanted to speak briefly about is that we have to respect the current right-leaning trend. And what I mean by that is, for foreigners in our relationship with how we see the United States as, the big elephant in the room, is that as long as Trump carries on with the tariffs, the quotas, the trade wars, the whatevers, people are looking at that, and they're looking at the employment rate in the US and the US dollar becoming stronger and stronger, and they're thinking, you know what? This guy is right. Let's do that. Let's go into a trade war of ourselves if we can afford it. And so this whole right-leaning nationalist protectionist trend is very real, and there are a few emerging market countries that are actually really starting to like this idea. Okay, how many of us here have heard of niobium? Awesome. That's a lot more than I expected. Cool. So niobium is a very little known mineral. It's a metal. It's used in stuff like reinforcing steel. It's used in cars, in MRI machines, and all sorts of things. And the reason why I'm mentioning this to you, and I want you guys to take note of this if you like this as a far-fetched possibility before this comes out on video and everybody knows about it, is that if it works out, it's going to make me look like a genius, but there's so many speakers that if it doesn't, you're probably not going to remember that I even mentioned it, so I left it for last. And how Brazil ties into niobium? Well, niobium is the sort of metal that all the early Bolsonaro voters were for, as like, this is our oil, we're really going to make it big because we have niobium. It was like the Brazilian proud moment of, we own this mineral and we're going to make it big. Nobody could explain to me how we were going to make it big. It's just a tiny metal that most people have never heard of. And so I just laughed it off. Conspiracy theorists were all over the place with this, so I just never really paid attention to it. And then I did something that we all do here every week. I decided unwillingly to put niobium on Google. And then I found something very interesting that I think we should take note of. Niobium is now being used in batteries for electric vehicles. And there's a company that you all have heard of called Toshiba. They have their next generation EV battery made out of titanium and niobium. So much so that they already have a contract with the largest producer of niobium, which is a private, unfortunately, company in Brazil, CBMM, and they want to secure supply for niobium. Now, Brazil supplies anywhere from 90% of the world's niobium to, some people say, 95, 98%. And we don't know whether Bolsonaro, the current president, is going to pull rare earths China on us, like what happened in 2009 and 2010 when China decided to play with the supply of rare earths, and the price of rare earths shot up even though they're not really earths and not really rare. This might happen with this current president if his finance minister is not really allowed to do his work. His finance minister is a true stand-up guy, Chicago School of Economics sort of guy, very pro-market. Brazil is probably going to be the strongest place to do business for the next 5 years, as long as this guy is allowed to do his work. And that's a big asterisk. If the relationship between the finance minister and the president breaks down, then all bets are off, and I might be pulling money out of Brazil. But for now, I'm betting on Brazil with my own money. And the link with niobium is that maybe Toshiba, with its next generation battery, will actually really hit it big. According to them, you can get a 320-kilometer range with a 6-minute charge with this particular battery. So I don't own an EV car, but you probably know that that's really, really good range on very fast charge. And so, yeah, that's basically something that you should bear in mind. If there is an embargo, if there is, a situation where the president wants to control this this metal, then it might get very interesting for the little tiny companies who are looking for it or producing it on a smaller scale. There are a few, very few public companies today that are trying to look for or producing niobium, but that might not be necessary. If this is the next metal for EV batteries, then I don't really know where the price could go. The price today is around $40 per pound. But who knows what could happen. If this is the next lithium, then all bets are off. And that is pretty much it. A bit of research will put you ahead of the curve for sure. I mean, the whole niobium story, I found out maybe 2 weeks ago because I Googled niobium Brazil. Who in this room could not have done that? I'm pretty sure we all know how to use Google. And this may be a story that, could yield a lot of potential. So my channel is The Next Big Rush. It's just a YouTube channel. You can subscribe for free and hear about some of the stuff that I'm doing, where I'm putting my money, and things of that nature. That's it. Thank you very much, and happy speculating/investing.